Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast, episode number 1. You're listening to the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. We've got all that's awesomely supernatural on TV, movies, books, games, and more. Your one-stop podcast for vampires, werewolves, mutants, and myths. And now here are your hosts, Archer, Sherri, and Ravynheart. Okay, I'm S.A. Archer, co-author and co-creator of The She. My co-host is Sherri Semine. Is it Semine or Semine? Semine.
Yeah.
Actress and voice talent. And managing all the techie stuff, and our game correspondent is S. Ravynheart, who is the other half of the She creation team. And this is the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. And today's topic is, what is urban fantasy?
Yes, I would like to know. What is urban fantasy? Inquiring minds want to know.
Well, I have a list.
Good.
I came prepared.
Good, because we need to break this down. I mean, I get the vampire and the werewolves and fairy tales, but when you were breaking it down even more, I didn't know what you were talking about. I don't have what you gave me in front of me, so okay. I can't even read it.
No worries. We're gonna go through it.
There is a short answer, and then you can go into a much deeper answer.
Okay.
The short answer is any story, whether it's in books, movies, TV, games, whatever, any story where a person or people have supernatural abilities and it's set in modern day times. That's your short answer.
But that's my problem, is like, what does it encompass? You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
a lot.
Yeah, that's where I was like, she was naming specifics. Archer was naming specifics that I had never even heard of. I was like, I didn't even know it broke down that much.
Oh, yeah.
So,
you ready for the long answer?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he gave the unseelie answer, and I'm going to give the sealy answer.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
The unsealy answer, you notice, took 1 minute. The sealy answer will take 1 hour.
And if you want to know the sealy or unsealy, you have to read their series. You should now go ahead and plug your stuff, so they can go back and figure out what unsealy and sealy is.
Yeah, they can find out about our stuff at shetouch.com. That's SIDHETOUCH.com. And we have a series of books that involve the She, which is a kind of fae. And the She are divided into 2 courts. And there's the unseelie court, which is kind of wild and freedom-loving and very direct. And they're usually considered kind of dark. And then there's the sealy that are more civilized, and they like the grandeur and the, pageantry, but they also can be very sort of manipulative and secretive.
Can be.
And I don't think like the politics too.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of compare them to the difference between like the sealy would be the like the preppy kids, who are very much about looking the part and looking proper and
Popular
getting the
kids.
grades.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the unsealy are like the grunge kids. They have the ripped jeans and the loud music, and they don't care what you think.
Yep.
So.
It's a good book, people. It's a good series. It's a good series. I love it. And then there's vampires and werewolves and wizards, and I say magical creatures, just to encompass everything, because there's so much stuff. I know I'm missing a group. Who am I missing? There's wizards.
There's all sorts of.
I know everybody you can
creatures,
think of.
That is a good all-encompassing term.
Magical creatures. I know. Yeah. Because otherwise goblin. No, no, you don't have goblins, but you have
Yeah, we
Yeah, we
do.
do.
You
Yeah,
do
we
have
do.
goblins?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, awesome.
That's actually where Malcolm was being held captive.
That's right, in the cave. I remember. That's right. Those little buggers. Those were bad. Those were bad. And then, yeah, I didn't like those at all, but you guys were so descriptive. I mean, you could almost see them. I mean, I could just, yeah, that was. Oh, and dragons
Yes.
and druids. I love, and you know, because I like the fact that you got the human, the modern Ireland, and everything, and yeah, and so. Yeah, but see, now I'm trying to get people to want to read it because it's awesome.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've been touched in a good way. That's in the series too.
Yeah. You'll have to read it to find out, right?
Oh, okay. So who's giving me the you gave me the unseelie. Who's giving
Yep.
wait. Who did
Take a
the
guess who's giving the Sealy version.
Okay.
So, well, I thought we could kind of just sort of talk around it and work our way in. That's very silly.
That is true. Don't come straight out to it.
Well, one thing that urban fantasy is not, that I wanted to touch on, is science fiction or technology based. So things can be happening in modern times, but if you're using science or technology to accomplish the super stuff, that's not the same as urban fantasy. That's still science fiction. So, like, say, you made a little device that you can use to teleport from here to another place. You're able to teleport, yeah, and that seems really cool and different, but you're using technology, you're not using magic. It's not something innate to you. So it's still sci-fi. It's not urban fantasy. So fantasy is usually going to encompass something that's more magical or supernatural and not technology.
So it has to be supernatural in some way.
Yeah. More than, yeah, something we couldn't just develop eventually, you know? Like,
okay.
30 years ago, the cell phone would have seemed like, woo, wow, you know? And now it's like, yeah, it's just technology. Everybody's got it, you know? If I hand you a cell phone
is from Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I swear they came up with a lot of the technology we use today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So, well, it's so
You're
that
fine.
doesn't. Yeah, so that's something that like anybody can use if you just have the right technology. It doesn't, you know. So that's sci-fi. Anyways, so that's not urban fantasy. So that's what it's not.
Instead of talking about urban fantasy, let's talk about what's not urban fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but then that leads us to what it is, which is, you know, you're going to have some innate supernatural abilities. So I have a list. I'm going to read my list.
Okay.
So you know, mutants, for example, like in the X-Men, that's something they're born with. You know, it's in their genetics, so they're special. So
yeah,
they have supernatural abilities. So you got your mutants. You've got people with paranormal issues, like vampires and werewolves. You know, they used to be people and normal, but then they had something paranormal happen to them, and now they're more than human. They are these different things.
Would psychics?
Psychics, yep. I have
Would
psychics.
that would be urban fantasy if it was?
Yeah, psychics.
Okay.
So,
see, I wasn't sure if that was fantasy enough.
Yeah, because it's still innate and special and supernatural.
Okay.
So, you know, ghosts fall into that.
Okay.
Can fall into that too.
Okay.
Of course, anything with magic. So, you know, you got your witches, you got your Harry Potter kind of thing. And then you have your mythical creatures. You know, you got your elves and your angels and your demons and deities and all that succubus.
Yeah, like mythology. Anything with mythology would be urban fantasy. I mean,
as long as it's in modern times. So contemporary being, you know, from the recent past to the near future even. So you can kind of drop back to like, you know, the 70s or 80s, and you can maybe go out another 10 years from the present and still kind of fall into contemporary. contemporary enough to where you feel like I could walk into this world and navigate in it. I don't need to know anything,
Yeah.
I don't need to know how to ride a horse or use a
Yeah.
spaceship,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like somebody not in today's world could just be in that time frame and that they won't really see the difference.
Yes.
Except,
Okay.
hairstyles or something. So
Okay. Okay, that makes
close
sense.
enough. Yeah.
But I thought there was something in that list that I didn't. I swear there was something that you wrote down in an email.
Yeah, it was like, do we want to talk about what other things, how close they are? Like, steampunk is another
Yeah.
one that kind of
I
is
wouldn't.
more.
I didn't even know what that was. What is that?
Do you want to answer what steampunk is, Ravynheart?
Um,
Or do you not know?
I know what it is. I didn't want to take the floor from you.
No, go ahead. I talked too much already.
she's taking it right.
Putting me on the spot because I hadn't had time to actually think about this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it a genre? Steampunk is like a genre?
It's one of the newer genres, and it's it's not really contemporary, which is one of the things that takes it out of urban fantasy right there. It's more like turn of the century, 19th century to the 20th century, not 20th to the 21st century.
So like the book, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies? Would that be?
It involves basically, for the most part, a lot of modern day technology, but it's not run the way we do it. It's run like they have cars, but they would be run on steam, like steam engines.
Uh-huh.
That's why it's called steampunk.
Okay.
Just like the steam engine and all the stuff that they used to use with steam power, they just kept going with that instead of going to electricity.
Right.
Okay, so that's just their way of like
it's like an alternate
naming
history.
a period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like naming the period through steam. You know what I mean? Calling it steampunk is just basically letting you know that's the time frame.
It came out of there and then like came into the future. Like, what if they took that technology and then tried to build today's world with it rather than using electronics?
I have never read or seen a movie. Name a movie or something or a book or that is steampunk. That would help me, I think.
There was a movie with Will Smith, Wild Wild West.
Oh yeah, okay.
That is steampunk.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. That big spider thing. Yeah.
That helped a lot of people out in case they didn't know what steampunk was. I had Wild Wild West with Will Smith. Bam.
See,
It just hit me.
And then it took the Unseelie one to hit it on the head.
Yep.
He was direct and to the point.
Once it finally came to me.
I was like, there's got to be something out there that we can reference. So, yeah, okay.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie, so it hadn't come to mind.
Ah, that's a good one. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
good one. Now that makes sense. Now that I can go, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so anything in, not even, it doesn't matter what time period, but anything using that type of technology where,
Okay.
like the spider, that spider machine was run on steam power.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, every one of those little gadgets, every
Yes.
one of the secret compartments that were in that train were
It
run on
was
steam
spring
power.
loaded. They were either spring loaded or
Yeah.
steam. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's okay.
That is steampunk.
Now I know. I feel so much smarter now. I'm getting educated.
And this is also like helping us to define our limits for this podcast. You know, like where do we want to draw that line? How how close to things that are kind of urban fantasy and kind of
Yeah.
This conversation is also helping us kind of define where we're going to draw our lines.
Okay.
For our own references.
Mm-hmm.
And for the listeners. And one thing that we're going to not be talking a lot about is paranormal romance.
Yeah, I can see how that would not be urban fantasy. I mean, because
It
that is definitely its own genre. I
it
mean,
can be in an urban fantasy setting, but being paranormal romance, it's more about the romance and less
yeah,
about the urban
exactly.
fantasy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's that's not the focus. Is the fantasy? It's the
Right,
romance.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and a lot of times the terms urban fantasy and paranormal romance are being used interchangeably.
Now, see, I don't get that because even to
Yeah.
me, a layman, I'm like, that's two different. That's two different things.
Yeah. Because I
Like,
mean, I'll go out and I'll buy a book because it says urban fantasy on it, and that sucker is paranormal romance. You know, from the get go, it's all about her hooking up with him and how they're going to do it, and they happen to be a vampire or werewolf or whatever else, but it's all about them hooking up. You know, so
yeah, and
that is a
that was the only
romance.
thing. That was the only thing that concerned me a little bit about the photos you had going with your book because they had a paranormal romance thing on a couple of them. Like it looked like paranormal romance.
With
There
like
was a little
captivated.
sensual. Yeah. So I was like, that might be a little misleading because the books aren't anything. Your series isn't like anything like that, really. I
Yeah, so
mean,
we try to
but
make sure to write that in the description, urban fantasy.
yeah,
So
yeah,
hopefully you
yeah.
can see that coming.
But see, you got books that said urban fantasy and they were paranormal romance. So
Yeah.
that I think everybody that line is blurred a little bit.
Yeah, some of them they act like it's, and
One and
I
the
think
same.
too, paranormal romance has a huge readership. So a lot of times urban fantasy will get called paranormal romance if there's like even, she looked at a guy for a second.
Yeah,
They'll classify it as paranormal romance because they want all that readership. Because
yeah,
romance is like the biggest genre.
yeah, exactly.
So
But I'll
so
tell
you'll
you,
get it the other way.
honestly though, I mean, the series is so good, your series is so good that I think even the people that think they're going to get some romance and some interesting read are still going to enjoy it whether they get that romance in it or not. They're going to end up enjoying the book anyway. So let's just grab them all, urban fantasy readers and paranormal romance. What the heck? Because I don't think they're going to be disappointed. I don't think they're going to be like, no, this sucked because nobody got together.
Or the ones who constantly are saying, "Is this one going to hook up? Is that one going to hook up?"
You're
They're
getting that
constantly
from
looking
fans?
for it, but they're still reading our stuff.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. It's still good. I mean, even without it.
I think we've had a few reviews that have dinged us for not having romance. And it's like it's not romance.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
You know
like,
what? Maybe because they were thinking the photos. They're thinking, oh, I mean, I don't
oh
know. I'm
well,
not trying
like
to
Scars of Silver. It's like, how did that even like? It's not.
yeah.
It doesn't sound romantic at all. But
It doesn't look romantic either. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
you're
Well, I think once you
you
read the first one, if they did go in order, I think they'd figure it out. It's not about romance or sex or anything. So I don't know. As a fan slash, I don't part of this. I'm like being half fan and half somebody else. I'm like critiquing it like someone reading it. I feel bad because I don't want to diss what you've done because it's really good. But I could see how the covers might confuse people. But I still think,
Mhm.
like you said, they're gonna read it anyway. I
Mhm.
mean, it's good. It's good. So
Well, thank you.
I don't know who to thank half the time. Like who wrote what. Like like when I read stuff, I'm like, I wonder if that's Ravynheart. I wonder if that's Archer. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if it's unseelie,
you
most
wrote it.
likely I had a big hand in it. If
I
it's
knew it. I was like,
Sealy,
you wrote it.
if it's Sealy,
So I'll just
she
call
had
you
a big hand in it.
I'll just call you Donovan then.
There you go.
Okay, but for the podcast, I was thinking we weren't going to go too much with paranormal romance. That we were going to
Yeah.
stick more with the
Yeah.
action
Yeah.
and urban fantasy.
Me too. Yeah.
So really, there's a lot of paranormal romance like out there.
What?
Like you can find podcasts, you can find
Yeah, and plus there's
reviews and
it's
stuff.
all romance. So what are you going to talk about? I mean, there's
Right.
only a minor plot and a minor character. It's all about the romance. Nobody really wants a three-dimensional character. They're just looking for one thing and one thing only. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're all
It's like-
basically the same. I've read romance novels and things like that, so they're all the same. They're all cookie cutter. Just
They're going to end up together at the end.
yeah, yeah. And
So.
he's gorgeous, and he's they don't like each other at first, and there's that friction. You know what I mean? It's always then they get together. Yeah.
You could time it, you know.
Yes. That formula. Yeah, it's boring. I mean, what are you going to do with that? I mean, after the first one, it's the same thing. So
with the urban fantasy, we're hoping there's more conversation to have there. There's more
Yes.
story, like you said. More.
yeah. Well, and plus I like everybody's different take on it so far. When I read like Nightlife and then the one we just got to read, I mean, everybody's got such a different, unique take on the same stuff, on myths and magic, and you know what I mean? I find that fascinating, everybody's different take. So zombies, would that be sci-fi or urban fantasy?
We discussed this.
Oh, because I was like, she had
Probably
this smile on her face, and I'm like,
I'm waiting for him to jump in.
oh, okay. You got.
I'm waiting for you to
I'm
jump
like,
in.
Yeah, I was like, either I messed up with the zombies.
No. That's a
No.
good question. That's a good question.
Okay.
I think that zombies fall into urban fantasy.
I
Yeah.
think so too, because I tell you what, they're so big right now. I think we'd be missing out on a lot of people because it's vampires and zombies. I mean, when I look at auditions, you wouldn't believe how many freaking movies are squeezing a zombie in there. I'm like,
Oh, I would believe
like,
it.
it's crazy. I'm like, zombies are in everything. It's crazy.
Like she said at the beginning, I'm the game consultant, apparently. And in the gaming industry, it's tenfold more than it is in the movies.
Even
Wow.
stories that didn't have zombies the first time around, the sequel has a zombie.
The sequel has zombies, and the sequel to that has even more zombies.
Oh my gosh. I mean, they're
It
everywhere.
has actually gotten that far, yes.
Yes. Well, that's what I was saying. Pride and Prejudice and zombies. Somebody rewrote Pride and Prejudice with zombies.
Yeah, and what is with that, like, with Abraham Lincoln, the vampire
Lincoln the
Slayer?
Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
I didn't see that, but I was like, really?
Yes. I know. I saw that. And Whoopi Goldberg said, you must read it. She was on The View, and she was like, you must read she loved the book. She thought it was awesome. I was sitting there going, it almost made me want to read it. But I'm torn because it's Lincoln.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean,
It's a little off the wall.
I mean, it would probably be funny. I'd probably enjoy it in a funny kind of way, you know. But yeah, I've never gotten it. I never got it yet. But I thought about it after she was saying that. She's like, it's really good.
Yeah. It's like Grandma, get your gun, or something. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
what is with that? You know, it's like, this is not who that person is. So it's
Yeah,
hard
and
to go
I
there.
love Pride and Prejudice, but I cannot go to Pride and Prejudice and zombies. I mean, I just can't read my favorite characters with zombies, hunting down zombies. It just doesn't, my brain doesn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure it'd be funny to read, but
And
yeah.
what do you think about when they're coming out with Hansel and Gretel, witch
movie?
killers? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I
So
saw the actors doing interviews about that and their take on Hansel and Gretel and everything. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like part of me, I don't know. Part of me thinks like Hollywood is so, I don't know. They've got a million great screenwriters probably out there writing great, unique scripts. But everybody's caught up in, let's do fairy tales. Let's do fairy tale. They're pumping out money-making things, and there's, I'm sure, so many great, unique scripts out there, and they're not doing them. So I'm kind of like torn on that. I just feel like they're on this kick.
Yeah, they get into kicks every now and then.
Yeah.
And apparently, like you said, fairy tales right now
And
is the thing.
superheroes. Fairy tales and superheroes. Those
Yeah.
are the two. They're like killing it with I mean, anything to do with, I mean, when you're getting to Hansel and Gretel, for a movie, I mean, really, don't you feel like they're like getting to the bottom of the barrel? Like they need to come up with a new movie.
Yeah, they got
something.
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah, I saw that and I'm going, really? And they're
and
making.
You know what's bad is that I watched the trailer and I'm actually going, that could be
was
cool.
good. I know.
They definitely put it together well.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how good the story will be, but visually they haven't done a bad job.
Well, this is what we were talking about before. The whole CG.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the movie is probably going to be all CG.
Yeah.
Mostly.
It's going to be all visual and all like really cool, but is the acting or the plot going to be good? I don't know, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be about that. I think it's all going to be the CG and the whole special effects and all that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it did look cool. It did.
Sometimes, though, you get these trailers and you're like, I gotta go see it. And then you go see it and you're like, everything that was good was in the trailer.
Yes, that's what they do. It's like, or they twist a trailer to look nothing like the real movie. You know, the way they edit it together, you're like, that's not. They made it look like something else. Like James and I watched 7 Psychopaths. And they made it look like a comedy. And we were like, oh, awesome, because Christopher Walken, I mean, how can you go wrong with Christopher Walken? And so it's about these psychopaths. They stole a dog. They stole a mobster's dog. They kidnapped it for a It's a long story, but it looked like it was going to be funny because they were trying to keep this mobster's dog and everything. Well, so we're like, awesome, because they made it look so funny. We watched it and we're like, this is the darkest comedy ever. I mean, there were parts of it that were funny, but it was like that dark comedy because they were psychopaths.
Right.
So we're like, even James is not afraid of like dark stuff, and even he was going, well, this isn't what they advertised. They made it seem like a comedy. And I'm like, well, there were moments that were funny, but it was
they got all the funny moments in that trailer.
Yes, they took all the funny moments and put it in the trailer. So you think you're going to see one thing, and it's completely different. It was still a good movie, though. I mean, it was still a good movie, but nothing like what they were saying it was going to be or showed it to be. But
so you were mentioning you were seeing scripts with zombies?
All the time for auditions.
Have you tried out for any?
No. I mean, I did. Well, I'm sure somewhere along the line I probably put in for some, but I haven't gotten any. But they're everywhere. I'm finding it fascinating and funny that it's like da-da-da-da and zombies and da-da-da and this has zombies. And, well, I just did, I didn't just do it. It's like 8 months ago where I played a woman. I was murdered. I was killed by my husband, my ex-husband. And I was like 8 weeks pregnant at the time, and I didn't tell them.
Oh, no.
It was I forgot the name of the show. It's some show up in Detroit. He does Lee Martin's Midnight Hour.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of the Twilight Zone, but every one of his episodes are slashers. Blood and guts. But I didn't care because they didn't pay, but I mean, I just wanted to have that, and I got the demo. I got the demo for that. But it was like he came and I read the script. It was a very short story. It was a short episode, 30-minute episode, and I'm going, oh my God! It was like somebody was getting killed. This guy was going around killing everybody every 5 minutes, and I'm going, oh my God! And I'm just going to say that we had a daughter, and that's one of the reasons he killed me. Really quick, the daughter ends up being the most vicious one and kills him at the end.
Oh, lovely.
Like 7 or 8. Yeah, and I'm going, oh my God, this thing is so, yeah. Yeah. Bad.
Good times.
Yeah. But every once in a while I'll see his audition for another one, and I'm like, death, and destruction every episode, and I'm like, I couldn't do that all the time. I don't know how he can do every episode death and destruction. But,
would you rather be a zombie or be chased by a zombie as an actress? What would you rather be?
Well, I think it'd be easy to run away from a zombie. I just like walk. Power walk? I don't know. I think it would be fun to be both. I think it'd be fun to start out as a human being chased by zombies and then become a zombie. I think that would be kind of fun. Then you get to do both.
You could show your range.
Yeah, my range. I mean, how hard could it be to be a zombie? Look at just put the makeup on me.
You're perfect. You're hired.
See? I know. How hard is it to be a zombie? Just move all, like, you can't move your joints, like you're all stiff.
Okay, so I have a question about what you're talking about, like the getting to the blurred edges.
Mm-hmm.
Urban fantasy is fairly recent term. Some of what they used to call horror, I think now would fall kind of in the urban fantasy range, like Stephen King's Firestarter, for example. I think would be kind of urban fantasy. The TV show Supernatural is kind of, it started off like it's horror, but I think now you could call it urban fantasy.
Wait, what TV show Supernatural?
There's this TV show called Supernatural. It's two guys that are going after ghosts and stuff. And
did you tell me about that one? Because I don't know that one.
I've only just seen a little bit, and it looks scary, so I didn't watch it.
Oh, okay. I've never.
It has a lot of horror elements. Like the first episode, I started to watch it. There's two brothers, and apparently they're eventually, the show is going to be about them as adults, but this is showing them when they were little. And it starts off with there's one in the cradle, and then there's one that's young, 5, 6, 7, 8 range, and the father goes in to check on the baby, and the baby's fine, and he goes out, and then the mom goes in to check on the baby, and something is in there, and like she starts to walk past the room, and she looks in there, and she sees a man standing over her baby's crib, and she assumes it's her husband, and she goes on, and then she sees he's downstairs, and she's like, oh crap, and goes running back up to the crib,
Yeah.
And so she rushes in to check on the baby, and the baby's fine, but this guy is in the room. And he, lunges for her. And then we see downstairs the guy, I think he heard something on the baby monitor or something, and he comes rushing back upstairs. And she is, like, pinned to the ceiling and, like all, like I'm possessed, kind of twisted up, and, like, blood all around her, and, like, talking all, like she's been possessed by some kind of awful thing.
Oh, my gosh.
She catches fire. The whole room catches fire. He grabs the baby and gives it to the little boy, and is like, get him out of here, and he's going to, try and rescue his wife, who's now completely set on fire. And the boys get out of the house, and the house burns down. And so it's like...
This is a TV show?
This is a TV show. Then 15 years later, they're grown up, and they're still, like, going after paranormal, crazy nasties. So... that's where it started. I was like, it was a little bit much for me.
So it's almost like they're chasing this guy it's almost like they're trying, through their paranormal research, they're trying to maybe find this guy that killed their parents, or this thing.
Yeah, or understand at least what had happened,
I've never heard of that show.
I think they're like on their 8th season or something like that.
Gosh, what the heck? I have never heard of it. And they're acting, it's not a reality show. It's like
no. It's a scripted TV show.
I have never heard of it. Now I feel stupid. I know I don't watch a lot of TV. I really don't watch a lot of TV. But now I know I don't watch a lot of TV because I've never heard of that.
So I've only seen bits and pieces, but it seems like very much a sort of Exorcist feel.
I think I would have nightmares, or start affecting. If I watched that at night, I think it would start affecting my psyche at night.
Yeah.
I can't watch scary movies at night. I can't do it.
Yeah, me neither. So, like, I don't want to put that into my head.
The description you've given, that could be urban fantasy, but I think that fits in horror.
It's more clearly horror.
I think it's like, don't you think it walks the line, though? Like, it could go either way.
If it has enough in it that it could possibly give you nightmares, it's horror.
Okay. Well, I'm easily given to nightmares, so I mean, it doesn't take. I can't watch scary movies. I just can't watch scary movies. Any scary.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much. I don't know if you saw The Grudge.
No, I can't watch that. See, I can't watch that.
I watched that one time. It messed me up for like 3 days.
See, I know. I'm like, nope, not watching that. In fact, the Mummy.
Yeah.
Fraser.
Yeah, I don't
For
like
years,
that.
I didn't watch that, and James kept telling me, he's like, it's not scary, it's more funny, and I refused to believe him. I'm like, that looks pretty scary to me.
Yeah.
But then when I watched it, I'm like, this isn't scary. I mean, I didn't really think that was a scary movie. I can do that. That kind of, especially with comedy thrown in to
balance it out.
Yeah, it's not that scary.
Another one that got me was The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
I haven't watched. I can't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't. I watched it and it messed me up for 2 days. So.
See, well, you're watching them at least. I mean,
I had watched it, and then it's like, because I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be kind of a ghosty story. Back before I was like, I really can't watch that stuff because I have nightmares.
Yeah.
And then it was like, the way I'd heard it kind of talked about by the actors, they're like, well, when you're watching it, you can be like, you can look at it from one way and say, okay, she was possessed and this had happened. Or you could look at it like she actually had seizures and like a mental disorder that was mistaken for demon possession. Like, you can kind of watch it from either angle. But it was supposed to be based on a true story.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and so it was like, I don't see how that could be just that she was having spasms or whatever, some of the stuff that she was doing.
But you know how Hollywood does. They don't tell the real tale. They
tell the cinematic version.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's not how it went down in real life. I mean, I don't know how it went down, but I'm sure they added all kinds of stuff. Hi, kitty.
Yeah, so you have the podcat in their background. Okay, so we're thinking like stuff like that, and then maybe stuff that's contemporary, but it has some weird elements like Twilight Zone. We're probably not gonna do that kind of stuff on the show.
Yeah.
Or do you think that? Where do you think that falls?
No, I didn't really think Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that's not urban fantasy.
I think sci-fi.
It's more what if, and it's like,
I think it's trying to go horror too.
Yeah, it's paranormal, and it's leading more towards the horror. It doesn't quite fit.
Mm-hmm. I guess if the point is like with Paranormal Romance, the point was the romance. If the point is the horror, then,
you're right.
Then that takes it out of the.
Yeah, that takes it out.
Urban fantasy more about like adventure.
Urban fantasy is about the action. Well, not even so much about the action. It's about the adventure. It's about the story. They are telling a story that has supernatural aspects to it.
I agree with that.
Okay. So urban fantasy seems to be gaining in popularity. So what do you think the appeal of urban fantasy is? Of the urban fantasy stuff that you guys have delved into? Because you've read a couple books now, Sherri.
Yeah, I know.
We've talked about a couple TV shows and movies that we're going to have in future podcasts.
Yeah.
So what do you think is appealing to the reader or the person who's watching it that draws them into wanting to be in this kind of fictive world?
I mean, I've always been attracted to this my whole life. So I think for me personally, it's different because I've always liked the different. I always liked the fantasy because I'm very fantasy oriented anyway. I mean, I've always daydreamed. I always, you know what I mean? I used to dream about flying on my bed through the city. You know what I mean? I've always, as a little kid, I've always been. But I think maybe for other people, maybe it's the same thing. Like they want to be taken out of this reality, but yet not leave it completely. Maybe, you know what I mean? Be able to come out of the boring every day, go to work, come home, have kids, have dinner. You know what I mean? I think they like the fantasy aspect without it being too fantasy. Because as long as it's modern and it's not 300 years ago, you know what I mean? I think they can more. It could happen. Like it's almost like that could happen.
Yeah.
Here's my world. Here is my world. And here is me with superpowers.
Yeah.
That's what urban fantasy basically is. It's,
Yeah.
here's the world that I live in, and I can read this, and through the main character, I can live in what feels like real life, but with
Yeah.
superpowers. So
Yeah.
they can step out of reality, but not step so far out
Yeah.
that they have to basically recreate an entire world in their head.
Yeah. And maybe not even have powers every time, but just the fact of it not being the boring everyday life, the adventure.
Yeah.
The adventure. Because, like, you have humans, regular humans in your story. I mean, like London. I mean, she doesn't.
Mhm.
I like the fact that she does battle against everybody, and all she's got is, like, I put in my thing when I was talking about it. She just battling with wits and a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and she's going against these creatures and these beings with power and magic and stuff like that, and it's just her brain. You know what I mean? So I mean, so maybe that's why I like her so much. I don't know why I like her character more than all the others, but maybe that's why, because she's the most like me. That would be me if I was in that world. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a big part of the draw, is people being able to step into the story. Like, this character really could be me.
yeah,
Not that I'm reading about someone else who has these superpowers or whatever. This character, this could be me.
mm-hmm.
So it helps them fall into the story a whole lot more, and it draws them in really deep.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be what made Harry Potter so big, is that Harry Potter starts out as, I'm just a normal kid, and I've got a normal life, and I'm.
Well, he was actually abused, normal
Yeah,
kid.
well, yeah, he had mean.
Yeah.
I consider that abuse. Yeah, they didn't even take care of him. They barely fed the guy. He lived under the stairs. He didn't even have a Christmas present until he got to Hogwarts. Yeah. I mean, that's abuse.
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of kids think they're abused. Like Harry Potter was, but like,
yeah,
a kid can go, that's me. I don't get anything. I'm,
yeah.
Nobody can see my specialness, but really there's a specialness in me, just like Harry, and someday somebody is going to say, it's you. You are the special one,
Mm-hmm.
and then this whole, amazing world opens up, and you're more than you thought you were, more than anybody ever thought you were.
I wished I would have thought ahead and wrote down this thing that somebody posted on Facebook, and it was so awesome because it said, "Oh, I'm gonna have to do it for next time." I know we're talking urban fantasy right now, but it was so perfect. I'll have to clip it for next time. But so, Harry Potter would be urban fantasy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And I was going to bring up Underworld. I love Underworld, but that was like years ago.
Totally. It still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would totally.
I don't think they're doing another one lately, but I mean, see, I was into that. I mean, I was.
It hadn't been too long since the last one, like
a couple years.
A year or two.
Yeah. It got a little weird at that last one, though.
I hadn't seen the last one.
Oh.
But yeah, that definitely fits.
Yeah. Now, I'm into this urban fantasy. I didn't realize how little I delved into it. That's what I was trying to tell Archer. I was like, I've always liked this kind of stuff, but I'm like, wow, I am so out of the loop. When you were naming all the different things, I'm like, I guess I'm not into it as much as I thought I was into it.
You're also talking to somebody there who lives, eats, breathes, sleeps urban fantasy 24/7, 365 days a year.
Just this much.
I didn't realize you were that into it. I really didn't.
Oh, yeah, everything.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, for me, it's a lot like what you said. It's like, it's almost like I can't just accept the world is this boring place. That there has to be more to it.
Yes.
World without magic is like, why am I even bothering? Otherwise it's like I'm just trudging.
Yes.
I'm just walking that long road to the grave, you know?
Yeah.
There's nothing great about this life, you know,
It's-
there's not more to it. So
I think it's like Peter Pan. I don't want to grow up. I feel like people who live in this reality and don't delve in anything else, they're the grown-ups. And we're like Peter Pan.
Yeah.
We want to see the magic. We want to, you know what I mean? We don't want to grow up. So it's like, yeah, because I've always been that way. I'm like, I sometimes I still feel 14. And, you know what I mean? Mentally, I'm like, I'm so not grown up. Or at least, I mean, there are times when I have to switch on mommy mode. But other than that, I mean, I'm still an optimist. You know what I mean? Like, I still want to see everything for the good, which is probably going to be my downfall, but I don't care. Like, I still, well, what I was saying before, like, I'm an optimist with a realistic, I don't know how I said that before. But I mean, like, I have
just enough cynicism.
Yes, I've just had enough stuff happen to me where I'm not a complete optimist. You know what I mean? Like, I want everything to go well, but I know
anymore. Yeah.
I know that it might not, but I still believe. That's how it goes.
So that kind of brings up an interesting topic. Now, I've seen a lot of urban fantasy stories where the main person who has something special, like, you know, they can hear ghosts or they can do whatever, then they're like, I don't want this life. I want to be normal. I want to just be a normal person. Why can't I be normal? What do you think about those stories where it's like, you have this awesome power, person, you know, why are you wishing it away and wanting to go back to mundane? You know, like, we're seeking to get out of mundane. That's why we're reading this.
I've never read or seen a movie like that. I've never done that, but I'm thinking it's the whole concept of the grass is always greener. Whatever's going on.
Whatever I have is not good enough.
Yes, whatever is going on in your life, the other person's life looks so much better. So I mean, that's the way I would take it. I'm sure that's what the writer's doing, or that's what I would be thinking. Everybody always thinks their life isn't as good as somebody else's, or that person's might be better. So maybe somebody who has magical gifts thinks, well, the regular people, they have a good life, or they have a better life. I have to deal with all this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like they did that on what was that one TV show with the witches? Charmed.
Oh yeah.
Always, oh, I want a normal life. I want a normal life, but I have to deal with these demons and stuff. And they kept wishing themselves out of you know, the special thing that they had.
And we all know that everybody isn't as perfect as they portray, or you know what I mean. Their life isn't as perfect. When I was in college, it was interesting because this girl, I think it's like just because she saw me and she thought she knew me, and it was one of my theater classes in voice and movement, and it was almost like therapy. You had to go through some very traumatic, the teacher wanted you to relive some very traumatic moments in your life right there, and you just had to go there. You had to go there. So I did. And it was awesome because I didn't even think I needed therapy. I thought I was perfectly fine. I was John Wayne. You know what I mean? Like, I don't cry. I don't do this. But I went through these personal moments that I didn't tell anybody about. And I did them right there in class with everybody. And we're all going through it together. It's not like people are watching you. Everybody's doing their moment at the same time, you know, wherever. And everything. And she told me towards the end of the semester, she's like, you know, I always thought because you were white, because you know, I looked a certain way and I'm perky and I'm happy, and you know, she goes, I always thought your life was better, you had it better, but now you know what I mean, I see that everybody has their struggles and everybody, and so I found that I was like, okay, because I was glad I went through it, and I was so much better for it, but it made me feel even better that I helped open up somebody else to seeing that it's not always better. And so, you know what I mean? Like, everybody has their...
Grass is not always greener.
Yeah, everybody has their own stuff. Everybody has their own, you know. And so you don't know what's going on in their house. You know what I mean? You don't know. So That's what I was thinking of, though, when you were bringing that up about the character, but the magic and envying the normal people. I
Yeah.
think that's basically, everybody thinks it's better.
I had one more topic of, does this fall into urban fantasy or is this something else? What do you think about like the ones that are like the person is from today? They're a normal, person from today, but somehow they've time traveled or dimensional traveled, and they're now like in Alice in Wonderland kind of an environment. Do you think the modern person in a completely foreign environment that's kind of magical or whatever, does that fall into your idea of urban fantasy, or do you think that's going to be completely like a separate thing?
That's
It's
interesting.
taking out the urban as from
The environment.
yeah, it's taking the urban environment out of it in my eyes.
Yeah,
It's still fantasy.
it's not enough urban, because even though that person is from modern times, he's like, whoever that person is only like 2% modern. I mean, when they get thrown into something else.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's enough. I mean, I guess it would depend on how they wrote it or whatever. I mean, maybe she encompasses the modern times into that reality. That would, but I don't see how you could do that. But other than that,
Yeah.
I don't think it's got enough modern in it.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's the person from modern day times gets taken to Alice in Wonderland, it gets taken to Wonderland, pretty much exactly how Wonderland was portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say that's fantasy, but not
Yeah.
urban fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have to become that world. They can't have this
Yeah.
world in there.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe if you want to discuss like examples of what you think are some good urban fantasy, what's your favorite urban fantasy stuff?
Oh my gosh, what I'm reading, the stuff I've been reading lately. That's awesome. I mean, I don't know. Your guys' series. Well, I don't want to talk more about this. I want to wait till are we going to do a podcast on your series?
Yes.
Because I'm going to save all my other questions, because I had other ones like the language and stuff like that, and language and names. Those were going to be some of my topics.
Awesome. Yeah, we will probably do that in the next group of 4 podcasts.
Okay.
Okay, so let's wrap up. We can chat a little bit after we wrap up.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to play our music.
All right.
You want to give your website, Sherri? We didn't give your website yet.
I don't even know. I just have it under my favorites. I think it's Semine, like it's www. Yeah.
Semine.wix.com, I think.
Yes. I didn't even have it memorized. I just go to it. I just go to favorites and go down. I didn't even pay attention.
So how do you spell Semine? How do you spell Semine for people?
Semine.
There you go.
Yeah.
Does it mean something? Like, did you just...
It's my daughter's middle name.
Aw.
And it means goddess of the sun, moon, and stars.
Aw.
Yeah,
That's nice.
it's Dutch. Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I went, oh, that's perfect.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys next time. This has been fun.
Okay, yeah.
You've been listening to the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. Find us on the web at ultimateurbanfantasy.com. Make sure you sign up for the mailing list for updates and goodies. And hook up with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and YouTube. You can find out more about Archer and Ravynheart's The She series at shetouch.com. That's SIDHETOUCH.com. See you next time.